Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hi.
Okay, I believe we have all 7 members of the commission before us here. Mayor Scott was was held up a bit and is delayed. So one of my duties as deputy mayor is to step when he's unable or delayed. So I'm going to get us started off tonight. Before we do move forward with the formal portion of this meeting. This first meeting of the Carlisle Truth and Reconciliation Commission, I want to recognize our purpose here today. I hadn't thought about it when we first scheduled this meeting, but this is the anniversary of the death of George Floyd. It shouldn't take 9 minutes and 29 seconds on a man's neck to be the reason that we press forward with social change. 400 years should have been enough to press forward with that social change. But we are here now in this moment. And if from that moment 1 year ago, we can make change here in Carlisle, then that is exactly what we will do. I also want to recognize the senseless death and murder of a member of our Black business community here in Carlisle, in Kendall Cook. Along with the attempted murder of Anthony White. And if we could all just take a moment of silence to reflect on those deaths and reflect on our purpose moving forward tonight. All together with me, please. Thank you all for sharing that moment with me. And I see Mayor Scott is here. Mayor Scott, if you want to take over from here, all I did was do a brief opening reflecting on the anniversary of George Floyd's death and the murder here in town this past Saturday. And I think all we need to do moving forward here is to have the commission appoint a temporary chair so that they can begin their discussions on a permanent chair and organization.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Apologize for being late. Yeah, so first order of business, I guess I'll take nominations for your temporary chair. We can start out like that. Is there anyone, Mr. Stubbe?
Just as a suggestion before delving into that, it might be worthwhile to go around the horn and have each of the members of the commission just introduce themselves publicly, since this is their first meeting, and then go from there. Just a suggestion. It's
a great idea. This is why there's 3 of us, folks. Without further ado, I guess I will just go ahead and just call on folks as I see you on my screen to introduce yourselves. And we'll start with Emily.
Hi, everyone. I'm really excited to join this commission. I'm new to Carlisle. My name is Emily Callahan. I'm an educator. I have been a philosophy professor for the past decade. I did this sort of work about 10 years ago when I was living in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. I served on something similar to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. So I'm really excited to see how things have changed in 10 years. While I was living in Illinois, I served on my YMCA board of directors, on the hospital ethics committee, and on the library board of trustees. So I'm hoping that I can bring a fresh set of eyes and some community service experience. I look forward to working with you.
Kendall, sorry. Kendall.
Good evening, everyone, and pleasure to be here. My name is Kendall Isaac. I am the in college, and I've been in Carlisle for getting close to 3 years now. I'm originally from Ohio. My work related to this area, started there, doing quite a few things. When I was in the corporate sector, I worked as a diversity recruiter and for Abbott Laboratories, and also a part of the Ohio State University diversity fair and diversity efforts as one of their corporate board members. I then delved into the area of law, did a lot of discrimination work, as well as civil rights litigation work, litigated literally hundreds of cases. From there, I moved into higher education, and I taught dispute resolution and appellate advocacy, employment discrimination, and things of that nature. From there, I started my around the world tour of heading into education, went to Virginia, then to Georgia, now I'm in Pennsylvania, and I've been working in administration since then, either doing or supervising areas involved in legal, human resources, Title IX, compliance, affirmative action, that whole sector of compliance and equity related work has been my world for the past decade in higher ed.
Thank you, Kendall. Andrew.
Hey, good evening, everyone. First off, just really grateful for the opportunity to be here and very excited. I share a lot of your sentiment of excitement about what is to come. My name's Andrew Razanoskis. I go by Raz, a lot simpler. Feel free to call me Raz, Andrew, whatever you prefer. Not native to Carlisle, but I've lived here about 7 years now. Originally from Western Pennsylvania, and right now I work for Carlisle Construction Materials, where I've worked there for my entire career. So all 7 years since I graduated school. Involved in the community here. I work a lot with Project Share, the local food kitchen, as well as Big Brother Big Sister. So yeah, very excited. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Tristan.
Hi everyone, I'm Tristan. I am the new Community Outreach Director at the Cumberland County Historical Society. So I'm also not from the area. I moved here full-time in December, but I was in Cumberland County in Shippensburg for my grad program. And I think I probably have a little bit of a different perspective than at least everybody who spoke right now. So I have a degree in applied history, which is basically museum work, but I had a concentration in local and community history, which is important to me, and kind of understanding how to develop community around shared sense of space, shared history, and things like that. So I'm really excited to kind of engage in the work in this way, because I think what I've learned from history, but also what we can be doing with that, is going to be really helpful for this, and I think an untapped potential. So I'm very excited to get started.
Thank you, Tristan. Doreen.
Hi, I am Doreen Wilbur. I am a teacher at the Carlisle High School. I teach 10th graders. I've been teaching for 25 years. And a lot of that was at the middle school, but when you reach a certain age, like enough, you move to a higher level. At the high school, I started the Black Student Union. Of course, COVID has totally, wrecked the year for that. So we're hoping that things go back to normal and we're able to, pick that up again next year. I am also a Hope Station board member. I have lived in Carlisle for several years now, but I used to live when my kids were small in the Cumberland Valley School District. And due to the racism that my children experienced in that district, before we left, because it was a lot, we actually, or I guess I should say, I was actually instrumental in starting their diversity commission. We spoke at the school board meetings, and then from that point on, we had meetings with the superintendent and with others, and the commission had started. I am not sure where they are at this point. I hope that they're continuing, but that was something that was very important to me. And I'm from Pittsburgh. Go Steelers. Don't hate. No. Sorry, we can't be friends then.
Don't worry, Doreen. No hate here.
All right, good.
Tawanda.
Thank you, Mayor Scott, and thank you and Deputy Mayor Schultz and Councilor Stube for this opportunity to serve my community. And I still do refer to Carlisle as my community, although I do not live in Carlisle. I live in Dauphin County. I was born and raised in Carlisle and still very connected to much of the work that takes place in the community of Carlisle. So I got my start there. I did not teach at Carlisle High School, but I attended Carlisle High School. So all Carlisle schools, K through 12. I have a BS in Organizational Behavior and Applied Psychology from Albright College, and I have a Master of Divinity from Lancaster Theological Seminary. I've served on the boards of the Carlisle YW, the Lancaster YW. I was the criminal justice chairperson for the Lancaster NAACP. I also served on the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Council for Lancaster Theological Seminary. I hold a Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion certificate from University of South Florida. And I'm currently working for an organization called POWER. POWER is an acronym. It stands for Philadelphians Organized to Witness, Empower, and Rebuild. I do fundraising for that organization. And again, I'm still pretty involved with what goes on in Carlisle. So right now we're doing some planning for Memorial Day. Hope to see you all at our Memorial Day program at the Lincoln Cemetery at 11:30 on Monday. I think I got it all pretty fast. Thanks. It's a pleasure to be here and a pleasure to meet you all.
Thank you, Tawanda. And Roth, take us home.
Hi, everyone. So first I'll mention my affiliations. I'm also from Western PA, so go Steelers. I'm relatively new to the community. I just moved to Carlisle moved to the area in July of last year. I actually live in Mechanicsburg. I am an associate professor of law at Penn State Dickinson Law. I work on a lot of different topics, but one of my areas of focus is on policing. So that's one of the angles that drew me to serving on the commission, in addition to teaching at Dickinson Law and now serving here with you all. I also serve on the Mid-Penn Legal Services Board of Directors, which seeks to provide free civil legal services to people across Central PA.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the introductions. And I'll note for the record that we're also joined by Councilor Deb Fulham-Winston and Joyce Stone, who is the Borough Secretary. And now we will move to nominations. That'll be our first order of business. And what I thought we would do is we just take nominations from the floor and then close nominations, and then everyone will take a vote. Recommending that you folks nominate a chair and a vice chair. So with that being said, are there any nominations for chair?
Mayor Scott, just a clarification. Is this a temporary chair for tonight's meeting, or would this be a chair for the commission moving forward?
Deputy Mayor Schultz said temporary, so I believe we will do that unless there is a thought otherwise that we just have the permanent chair and vice chair.
And the only reason I suggested that is I think if I ask all of you if you've ever met each other before, most of you will probably say no. So it might be nice to get to know each other a little bit before you decide who's going to chair the commission going forward.
Thank you.
So yeah, this will be temporary. So I will actually do this the other way. I will take nominations for vice chair first. Anyone? Ralph, yes.
I'll nominate Emily.
All right. Emily for vice chair.
I'll second that nomination.
Okay. Seconded. Are there any other nominations for vice chair? I will consider nominations closed. All those in favor of Emily as vice chair, please say aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries. Congratulations, Emily. You are the temporary vice chair. Now, moving on to chair. Are there nominations for chair, temporary chair of the committee?
I nominate Ralph.
Ah, all right. Are there any other nominations?
I nominate Tawanda.
All right. Are there any other nominations? We will consider nominations closed. Now, normally we would go ahead and take a vote. Since you're both nominated, all right, we'll go ahead and just take them in the order that they were given. All those in favor of Ralph as chair, please say aye.
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 Right. That would be 3. And okay. Let's see where this is going. All right. Let's see now. All right. Opposed. All right. So Ralph has 3. All those in favor of Tawanda as chair.
Aye.
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 Well,
Sounds like 3-2.
yeah. What's that? What's that, Kendall?
It sounds like 3-2.
It does sound like 3-2. Who didn't vote?
I think the 2 who were nominated did not vote. In fact, Ralph, you voted for Tawanda, I believe, right?
That's correct.
Maybe the way to resolve this is, Ralph, if you're voting for Tawanda, do you wish to withdraw your nomination?
There we go.
Sure, I will. I will.
Great. All right. Thank you, Ralph. Appreciate that. Ms. Stallworth, you are chair of the TRC, temporary chair of the TRC. Congratulations.
Thank you, Mayor Scott. And thank you all for your votes of confidence in me.
All right. That being resolved, I will turn everything over to Ms. Stallworth, and I will withdraw. Wanda?
Thank you, Mayor Scott. So here we are, friends, with a ton of work ahead of us, and certainly I'm glad to chair temporarily. I think we have, quite a lot that we need to kind of work through until we can even get some wheels under us and move in the direction that we want to move. So Councilor Stubbe, I think one of the other main pieces for tonight is the bylaws. Councilor Stubbe sent out the HRC bylaws. I, in full transparency, have not read all 12 pages of them. I glanced over them, but I'm wondering if you guys have any suggestions on how we may want to proceed with that, is one question that I have. And then also how we may want to get to know each other a little bit better. I imagine not only is this work significantly different from the Human Relations Commission, but it's different type of work because of the just the trauma that's associated with race relations and some of the conversations that will need to be held, I think, assume a certain level of trust and transparency that this group will need to have. So some thoughts that I have around that too are some thoughts that you all might have around that. So I'll open up for some conversation about some discussion about those 2 things and how we may want to proceed after this evening.
I have I think we're a comment and a question actually. I think we're also supposed to work on our mission as well, as another action item during the first 60 days. Although to me, it seems that a lot of that is probably already captured to some extent in the charge for the TRC to begin with. So I don't know that that's going to be too onerous of work. I'm willing to volunteer to do a first stab at the bylaws. I'm very happy that Jeff Stubbe provided us with the HRC version of it. I also have not I took a very quick glance at it today, but I have not truly read it. But it certainly will serve as a good template to get us going. I would imagine ours wouldn't even need to be 12 pages necessarily, because we have a very finite period of time that we're working. So I mean, so I'll put that out there if you all are interested in that, in me taking the first stab at it and then sending it to you all for review and response, or at our next meeting, whenever that is. My question, and may need one of the counselors to speak to it, is whether or not we are subject to open meeting laws as it relates to our gatherings. Being in the private sector, I haven't had to deal with it here. I did have to deal with it in a prior when I was in Georgia, so it immediately came to mind. I quickly looked at the website, just looked at the first website that popped up, and it seemed to suggest that we might be, or we probably are subject to that. So I think we'll have to keep that in mind as well.
We specifically placed that in the resolution. So this commission is subject to the Sunshine Act.
Okay, thank you.
Deputy Mayor Schultz, could you give us some clarification on what that means, as far as how this group is able to meet outside of public spaces?
So as long, if you're meeting to get to know each other, you can certainly do that. You would not be able to deliberate on any official action that should be before the body. So that's rule number one. You certainly can't take straw votes on issues outside of a public meeting. Sort of in broad brushstrokes, that's what you're looking at. So the thought that you raised of getting together, getting to know each other, you can absolutely do that.
I think we have to give a 3-day notice for the meeting, and make, if it's on Zoom, for instance, a accessible link, something like that.
And that's what you should be doing. In certain circumstances, you can do meetings in 24 hours. I don't imagine this body would need to do that. So generally speaking, you probably want to give at least a week. And there was another thought that crossed my mind along those lines, but I lost it. So I'll think of it later.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Raf, can I hit Emily first? She had her hand raised. Thanks.
My question is also about the Sunshine Act. My question is about documents we produce. So I'm coming from Illinois, where there were pretty strict sunshine laws. If we produce documents in draft form, should they be attached as appendices to minutes that are made available publicly?
You do not need to do that, but documents that you produce as a commission, again, there are enumerated exceptions under the right to know law, but they can be subject to the right to know law, sort of like FOIA at the federal level.
And then Raf, you had a question or comment?
Yeah, my question was just another one, much more practical about the Sunshine Act. I was just wondering about, in terms of meetings, to whom do we actually just say that when we're having a meeting? Do we, who do we send this information to?
So scheduling of the meetings will be done by Joyce. So once you've laid out a schedule of your meetings, we can publicize those as required under Sunshine. What I'm thinking might be beneficial is if I have a presentation that I give to municipal bodies that I represent on Sunshine and Right to Know. I can prepare that for your next meeting if you'd like. Okay.
That'd be great. Thank you. Before we get too far away from Kendall's offer on the bylaws. Any other conversation or discussion around that? I think that's a very generous offer. I don't want to miss that. So does anyone have any objections or thoughts, conversations, concerns, ideas, anything with that? Sure.
No concern, and I echo your thanks. That's a huge carry, and it's much appreciated. Is the mission statement a separate document? I too haven't had time to look through what Councilmember Stubbe shared with us. So the bylaws are one thing, mission statement's another thing. Great, okay.
Yeah, and I don't see a mission statement as a part of the bylaws. But Emily, it sounded like you might have some interest around that mission statement. I don't know, it just sounded that way.
I can take a stab at something, sure.
Great. Any other thoughts? Sure.
I have a suggestion and a comment. Suggestion is that at least as a first pass for thinking about the mission statement, might we just stick rather closely to the resolution in terms of the 5 things that it suggested that we do? I don't know if we want to add to that because the resolution said may include, not must include, and obviously that means you can add things to them. But I was just thinking there are 5 things that it says that that are in that the borough has resolved to do. So it seems like those should probably be part of the mission statement, and that could probably make this easy. So that's a suggestion. The other thought is about getting together to know one another. I'm happy to host. However, of course, I'm the one perhaps who lives furthest from Carlisle since I live in Mechanicsburg, but I'll just throw that open as an offer since I do have seating for sufficient people, but maybe there's people who are closer who would like to volunteer.
Well, thank you for the offer. Certainly, because this is recorded in a public meeting, I'm good with if we make those arrangements and plans sort of offline, so that we're not sharing personal addresses and all of that sorts of thing. This may even be on Facebook Live, so I don't want to start like exchanging numbers right now. Sure, Tristan.
Along that vein too, whether it is for us or if it has to be a little bit more of a public forum also, I spoke to the other person in my outreach department, and we're free to use the Historical Society whenever, as long as it's open, which Todd Hall is 90% of the time open. So if we ever need to get together, that's a larger space and less, nice than somebody's house or a restaurant perhaps. But if we do want that space, we have a lounge area too, and we're more than happy to offer up that space too if we ever just want, set up a couple tables. We can bring food and drink there also, that's not a problem. So if we ever do need a space, and that's not necessarily localized, but if we do something like on a weekday and everybody's in town, something like that, also an option. I just want to throw that out there before I totally forgot.
Thank you. I guess, Raph, what I'm thinking about with your thought around the mission statement and letting the resolution kind of guide us, if we meet, and maybe this is another conversation too, if we meet monthly and this has to be done in 60 days, we really only have one meeting, and that's just guessing that we're meeting monthly. That's certainly open for discussion too. So any thoughts around the frequency of our meetings? Any thoughts?
I don't know. I guess my initial reaction is it might be good to meet a little more frequently than that early on, so we can get our bearings, even if it's twice a month for the first 2 or 3 months. And then perhaps we can pivot to once a month once we have a set agenda and we know exactly where we're headed and how we're going to get there.
I was thinking the same. I think that a little more frequent cadence, at least from the beginning, could benefit us.
Okay. do we want to look at calendars then for what that might look like? Do you want to look at that now? I mean, I guess we would have to pick the next meeting tonight.
Yeah, I think beyond that, we can do something similar to what was done before, just have, you know, almost like a spreadsheet, which days would work versus which would not, and then come to a consensus that way.
So like a doodle poll, Doreen?
Sorry, I was muted. That would work.
Okay, okay.
Now, I know they when they sent that first doodle poll out, it seemed like it went all the way through the month of June or something, or pretty far into it. So unless people's schedules have changed,
It did.
Joyce probably already has data that would reflect when we're available over the next 3 to 4 weeks. Doesn't mean we can't redo it, but
Sure, I think that's a great place to start. Joyce, would you be able to give us some clarification on that? I don't know if she's necessarily right by the, or hey.
I can. I actually set up the pool, so I have the results of it on my account. But I can send an email of that to the group so that you can all review it and use that. And I believe Kendall's right. I do think it was a good bit further out than just this date. So I'm happy to shoot you guys an email with that.
So we could even use that to look at when we could get together informally as well, to get to know each other. So that'll be helpful. Yeah. So some other questions that I had were just about the meetings coming together sort of with an agenda in place for our meetings. I guess that's something that the chair and the vice chair could create together, and then sort of bring it to send it out via email a week before and kind of go from there. Anybody have any objections to that? I don't know if anyone has anything else that they would like to add. It looks like we, you know, as far as scheduling our next meeting is really dependent upon that availability that Counselor Stubbe is going to send us. Based on what our assignment was for this evening, I think we've done a pretty good job of at least figuring out where we are and which directions to go and how to sort of organize ourselves. Anyone have any additional thoughts for this evening or any other discussion or conversation around this group, or things that you want us to maybe keep in mind as we move forward, or any resources to share with one another that we could read in the meantime, any research that you have that you'd like to share, any of those sorts of resources? I guess we could sort of share those right now, if that's all right. Yes, ma'am.
I was wondering if anyone had the appetite to dive into the mission statement a little bit and the time thought we might spend this evening. But that strikes me as something that should be pretty short. And as Raf has suggested, there's already kind of a template there, but we could maybe get a bit philosophical about what we think about mission statements and what they should do and who they're reaching.
I think that's a great idea. Do we have the, does everyone have the resolution in front? I'm sorry, Emily, I don't want to just assume. You're saying to still use the resolution as sort of a guide for that?
I may be a little bit radical about mission statements, so I'm actually kind of a skeptic about using those 5 points as a starting point, but certainly conversationally as a starting point, I'm happy to start there.
Okay, does everyone?
I can put it into the chat. I've got a link right now.
Perfect.
I'm sorry, this isn't working.
That's okay. I'm trying to pull it up also. I don't know if Joyce, if you have, oh, here we go. Thank you. Emily, what are your thoughts using the chat? Do we want to call some things out? Sort of discussion, like discussion around it, or?
Tawanda, are you asking how should this group utilize chat?
Yeah, so I feel like if we were in a conference room, we might have a whiteboard in front of us and be moving words and phrases around. So
I'm actually taking notes. If that would be helpful, I can sort of put these together and share them with the group later. Or I'm happy with using chat as a kind of whiteboard. What I think can get tricky is when people use chat to when there's not a common understanding about how you share contributions. Do you raise your hand and share your contributions using your voice, or should the chair and vice chair keep an eye on chat and sort of work contributions in chat into the queue? I do think that's a decision the group has to make.
maybe let's see what happens organically also.
Can I throw out a thought about the mission statement? I'm often thinking about reaching the most skeptical person, and I'm a bit concerned that those 5 items could be a bit intimidating to someone who's skeptical about this project. And so I wonder if we can make the mission statement more accessible, and let that be kind of our first presentation of ourselves as a group who's really interested in listening and engaging all parties. So that's my kind of challenge to the kind of more obvious path of let's just take those 5 things.
I'm thinking too of sort of how they get pared down into a little simpler language, right? So even the first point, like we examine policies, practices, and actions.
I guess what would probably be good if we had or if someone started a Google Docs or some similar platform that could then allow people to access or work on it simultaneously, if that's our aim.
Then I think that question goes back to Emily's question earlier about documents. So it sounds like we're okay. So Deputy Mayor Schultz has said a Google Doc
Well, yeah,
would work. So it sounds like that's good to go.
I mean, we just have to be mindful that it is to disclosure later. So, I mean, don't put in there you wouldn't want anything in there you wouldn't want your mama to see.
I actually think my mom's watching right now. Yeah. Hey, Raph.
All right. Since we're thinking, we're both talking kind of very practically and a bit more philosophically, I'll ask a more philosophical question. So Emily's suggestion was that we should kind of seek to reach the person who's most skeptical about the vision of the TRC. And I was wondering, is that a good use of our time? For two reasons. One is the one kind of reason is like, is that person going to go looking for our mission statement in the first place? Like the person who's very skeptical of the thing that we're up to, like, are we like, is this useful for the community's time? And then the other kind of reason is like, as it were, the people who were in favor, like they're expecting something too, and expecting a mission statement to look a certain kind of way as well. And so I was just like wanting to make sure that, as you know, those people feel very satisfied. And so like thinking about, should we be pitching to the lowest common denominator, or those who, as it were, won?
Yes, Andrew, I'm sorry.
No problem. No problem. Emily, when you said that, like that's something I've been mulling over a lot as well, actually, is like how far might we tilt it towards the skeptic? And I'm wondering if the mission can't be a hybrid of a little of both. And I don't want to oversimplify that, but I do like the idea that we come at it somewhat open-minded, which that's not the right word, but come at it with like, hey, we're here to learn, and do we put something in the mission about educating, which could be anywhere from those who have commissioned this to those who don't believe in it.
Yes, ma'am.
What if, in addition to whatever else we include in the mission statement, we add a clause about meeting our community where it is? And that kind of says, you know, we are willing to reckon with reality, both those people who are skeptical of what we're doing, those people who are contributing to some of the problems that we're trying to solve, and those people who really desperately need us to do the transformative work this community needs. So if we add in there, meeting our community where it is, that's kind of a way of saying that.
Yes, Andrew.
Hey, sorry, just a question before we go further. For our mission statement, do we have an idea of exactly how long we want it to be? Even just looking at the 5, that is seems like a lot to digest. Do we want something that's a sentence or two that really
Well,
really drives our point home?
Yeah, I think so. There's a difference between a mission statement and a vision statement. So I think vision statements tend to be short and pithy and kind of catchy. Mission statements, to me, in my experience, tend to be a little bit more verbose and say a lot more, kind of flesh out what the vision statement is. So even though maybe it doesn't ask for a vision statement, maybe it might be a helpful step for us to maybe get one under our belt unofficially to kind of guide the development of a mission statement. So like we have a vision of the elimination of racism, right? So not to jump on the YW's mission statement, but that's what we would like to see happen. That's the end that we are working toward. And then our mission of that work toward that end is what we would want to come up with. I don't think it's super long, but I think it's a nice paragraph. Yes, Doreen.
I think also we can take a look at some other mission statements out there for similar commissions. You know, while everyone was kind of talking, I was just doing some searches just to see what else is out there. I always think it's a good idea to see similar examples, you know, just so that we have an idea of kind of where we may want to start. So I will put a sample in the chat if you guys want to see it.
That's a great idea.
So I do like the who are we section. When I was listening before, just when Emily was talking about reaching, you know, those who tend to question and be skeptical, that might be a nice little blurb to have, you know, to say, you know, I understand that you may be skeptical, but just take a look at the mission here, or not necessarily the mission, but the goal of the group and what we tend to want to represent and put out there, and what we are committed to.
I like what you're saying there, Doreen. That's good stuff. And even reading their mission sounds really good. The only piece I feel like is missing from this mission statement is sort of like the then what. So we're gathering this information, like to what end, right?
Yeah, I agree with that. That's a great comment.
Yes, Emily.
Is the end reconciliation? Transformation?
If I may, I think it's just always a work in progress, you know, in process and progress rather. I think the goal is to always reevaluate, you know, and move forward, reevaluate and move forward. You know, I often think of, you know, people who say that we, you know, reached Dr. King's dream. Well, no, because again, with every generation, we have to stop, we have to look, we have to reevaluate, we have to, you know, change to fit the times. So I don't know if we should even say there's necessarily an end goal.
I think that's a good thing for us to realize and discuss. Do we want to say that or not? I think what you said is compelling, that this is the kind of work that's never done. But perhaps there are ways of understanding reconciliation and transformation where part of knowing what reconciliation is coming to an understanding that it's a continuous process.
Well, in the who we are section, the second to last sentence is we share in common a vision for an equitable and sustainable community free of violence and systemic racism. So I feel like there is an end, there is a light at the end of the tunnel that we want to achieve, that we're working toward. And maybe that's end enough, right? Maybe that's goal enough. Maybe that's enough that the way that theirs is written, it kind of seems like we gather all of this information, like we gather all of this research, right? And then what do we do with it? I mean, we recognize that there's harm. We recognize that these things have happened, that, you know, that the borough has been responsible for these things, and these are policies. These are, and what are some of the ways that, and I believe this group is tasked with, what are some of the ways that that harm can stop and then even be recompensed for, if that's on the table or if that's possible. Raf, I'm sorry, I saw your hand.
Yeah, I think that this comes down to like so like TRC language has become very popular, but like the original TRC, the thing in South Africa, really was about truth telling. Like that's it. That was its primary mission. Like the Black South Africans had already won. They had already eliminated apartheid. It was already over. The question was just this, actually truth telling. Like that was the main point, to talk about what had happened before, what had been erased. And it seems like, in a way, the Iowa City thing seems to be following in a way in that mold, although there's not the equivalent of like apartheid was already over. And I think that we, again, looking back at the resolution, like one of the things the resolution calls on us to do is actually recommend for actual policy reforms. Like that's one of the things that we're supposed to do. We're supposed to gather information for the purpose of making recommendations about what the council should do going forward. And so I think any part of our mission statement should be that we're gathering information for the purposes of informing elected officials about what they should do next.
Yeah, and I just want to underscore what Raf said, is because we don't want to lose focus on our charge. And as of right now, our charge is to understand, reflect, report on, and make recommendations on how to move forward, how to improve, to really move that needle forward. But I don't know that we have the ability, so we have to be careful with putting in our mission statement that we have the capacity to actually do anything beyond what we're charged with doing. Now, unless part of our recommendation ends up being this commission needs to continue forward beyond December 31st, 2022, so we actually can implement or do. But I think, that's another conversation for another day. I think, you know, in this early stage, and that would probably be redoing our mission at that point, because, you know, a mission is always a living, breathing document that is subject to changes throughout time. So, from my vantage point, we need to be really careful about making it too lofty too soon, and sticking fairly closely to our charge.
I like the way that you just said that, about reflect, remember, understand. However you just laid that out, it sounded very mission statement like. And I almost wanted to say, wait, say that again. Because I felt like we were on that. I felt like we were on the track when you were saying that. But that felt very much like what we're doing in a real succinct kind of way.
I guess we're recorded, so somebody can play it later. Whatever it was.
I don't think number 4 in the resolution, I don't think necessarily has to be a part of the mission, right? So when we're looking at pulling out of the resolution for the mission statement, I don't see number 4 necessarily being a part of the mission statement. It's part of what we do, but the ways in which we collaborate with businesses and nonprofits, I think that language can come out of the mission statement.
Hey, just a thought here too. Can we, The Iowa City example here, but they have the who are we. Could we mirror something like that where we do put out, it seems like their who are we may be a little closer to a vision statement, which is a little loftier. The language is a little more, I want to say abstract, but not quite as concrete. You know, would it be appropriate for us to consider something like that in addition to a more concrete mission statement?
I don't have an objection to that.
Yeah, I agree. I don't have an objection.
I also know, Raf, I'll be right there. I also feel like mission statements are action oriented. So like I like what Iowa City is saying, but what they're committed to, I feel like then they should just implement and sustain rather than being committed to implementing it. And I'm sure they probably had a process like this where they looked at somebody else's mission statement and felt like that was the best way to say what they wanted to say. But I feel like and it could be all those professors that beat me down for passive voice, but I just feel like we want to implement and sustain and, use that type of language. Just a thought, Raf.
Oh, I was just gonna ask because my internet is unstable. I think Raz made a suggestion. I didn't hear what it was.
From what I just mentioned, Ref, just I like how the Iowa City has broken into two, kind of a more abstract vision statement, if you will. You know, there's not quite it's not actionable. To want to kind of, to your point, right? It's not so much actionable as like, this is the future that we desire. And then if we created something similar, might we also then create a mission statement that's much more concrete, that has the 1 through 5 and some variant of that. So just thinking along those lines.
So Tawanda, I guess in the interest of time, what would you think about maybe half of us working on a who are we statement and the other half working on a mission statement, and then kind of coming back? And I'm not sure if we have access to breakout rooms in this Zoom. That's been my life for the past year and a half with education, the breakout rooms. But I just, it really worked well because you could have the small groups and then come back together in the large group.
It doesn't look like we have breakout room. Oh, Joyce, hey, you have a thought on that?
Well, not so much a thought, I know that's a possibility. We haven't used them yet in the borough. I do know when I read the information on Zoom that they have that. If someone could educate me how we go about that, we could possibly do that.
The only concern with that might be the sunshine law issue, because I think once you go into breakout rooms, the recording stops.
And that's what I thought. That's what I was
wondering.
Okay. Yeah, so I don't think that will work in these meetings, right?
Okay.
I
mean, we do have the Google Doc open that we could maybe use.
That's a good alternative. I didn't think about the sunshine law part of it, but yeah. I think if we divide and conquer and then come back, and I think we have a better chance of getting some concrete ideas down on paper.
Yes, Tristan.
It may also be helpful, like I think the divide and conquer would be good, but if everybody also, even like, you know, if it's not your task to write a version of a mission vision statement, if everybody could just write something, even if it is kind of, you know, slapped together, just so we also can align our own visions for this. Just, you know, it doesn't even have to be, you know, if you're like, I'm not writing it, but to have something just so we can make sure we're kind of all thinking the same trajectory too. And maybe some of that language we might be able to stitch together also. You're like, I wasn't supposed to write this, but I had one. You're like, oh, that's the good phrase that was on the tip of my tongue. So, you know, you don't have to put that much effort into it, but then we'll say, okay, so we're all also looking at the same vision too. And it's not just, I think we already are, but just to make sure. And if there's maybe a point that somebody else wanted in there too, I would at least see it, even if it is just like the mission is A, B, and C, like could be helpful just to see where people are thinking.
I like that. I like that. I don't know if it looks like we're all kind of in here now. Well, might be tough to be in two places at one time. Did everyone get the Google Doc? I guess that's.
Question for the group.
I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry,
Yes, sure.
It just in the interest of time, and I don't understand, like, full disclosure, I don't understand sunshine laws at all. Something I probably need to research tonight. But is this something we can work in this Google Doc outside of the meeting? It's like homework and then deliberate on the next time, or is that out of bounds there?
Well, I think we wanted to. I think Emily's thought was that we would make as much use of our time this evening to maybe get some things down and maybe have some conversation around it. I don't know how much more time folks have tonight. We've been here for an hour, and I don't know for some reason I had it on my calendar from 7 to 9, but I don't think that was necessarily. I don't know. I mean, unless y'all want to hang out till 9 to do the mission statement, but I like that thought too, Andrew. That we have the document and can sort of work on it. We've had some conversation around it, and yeah, Raf.
There's from what I gather, there's 3 things that we're supposed to do by July 24th. One of them was the mission statement, the other one was the bylaws, but the other thing is an action plan. And I was wondering 2 things, kind of like what maybe guidance from one of the councilors or Mayor Scott about what is that supposed to be, kind of distinguished from the mission statement. I was wondering if that's supposed to be like more specific things, like actual, like, yeah. So I was just wondering, like, what was envisioned for an actual action plan. And I was just also kind of wondering about, to the committee or to the mission, kind of what is the balance of time that we should put into these various projects.
I think the action. Oh, I'm sorry, Councilor Stubbe.
I mean, I can let you go ahead, but I guess just to answer, because I know Raf had asked for input from someone on council. As the person who wrote the resolution, I guess I'll share that in my mind, when I was envisioning an action plan, it was more specific than perhaps a mission statement would be. So if you're outlining what your vision is and your mission is, then from there, putting some framework together for over the course of the next year, here are our plans for, like, when we're planning to meet, things that we're planning to do. So obviously that can change over time, but in general, some sort of outline or framework for what the commission's work is going to look like at a more granular level once you've agreed on an overarching idea of what you're doing. But that said, that is similar to the bylaws and the mission statement is kind of open to your interpretation as a commission.
I hear action plan and I think timeline. I don't know if anybody else kind of got those vibes. Yeah.
Yeah, I got kind of both kind of timeline, but also kind of more specific because, like, for instance, one of the things, like, number one in the charge is like, we're going to find out a bunch of stuff, but like find out how and disseminate how. And like, that's the kind of stuff that I thought would be in the action plan. And so like, from like, in a way, just the kind of, I'm a different kind of mission statement skeptic in that, like, I often think mission statements don't say anything. And what's actually more important is like, what things are we going to do? And so like, I kind of wonder if more time, especially collaborative time, should be spent in thinking about what goes into the action plan. Because I think of mission statements as kind of like advertising. Like, here's how we talk to the world about what we're doing. But then like, what's the nuts and bolts? Like, what are we going to do? We're going to find out stuff somehow or other. But like, we need to think as a group about like what we're going to find. How are we going to find it? How are we going to disseminate it? How are we going to make sure it's available for future people once we're in 2023 land? Like, that kind of stuff I thought would be really helpful to spend most of our time on, as opposed to a mission statement.
I added that to the Google Doc. I changed the name to include action plan, so we can just kind of keep the same document rolling and maybe insert a table here under the action plan and timeline with some objectives and kind of fill those in with some dates. And maybe the action plan is more drawn from the resolution more than the mission and vision statements are, because it kind of spells it out.
I just want to back up what Raf is saying. I think the most time should be spent on the action plan. I'm in favor of a really minimalistic mission statement, a couple of sentences. I think we could really get, maybe instead of even a vision statement, because I think that those can get really lengthy, especially since people think of them as advertising. What about just an affirmation of our values? Like, instead of who we are, this group values, and then it can be very concise statements of the things we value. And then, and that can be a kind of living, breathing thing for a little bit of time. As we consider more things that we value, we can add to that list. But in the meantime, we can be concurrently working on the action plan.
I'm sorry, Emily, could you repeat that? I apologize.
Not at all. So very brief, sort of 2-sentence mission statement. I put a candidate into the Google Doc. Instead of a vision statement or a who are we statement, what if we instead have just values or affirmation of our values? Okay. And then we just very concisely state, these are our values: racial justice, racial equity, truth and transparency, and keep them pretty short. And then put the bulk of our time into this action plan, because we're going to have a lot of questions that we need to ask the borough, I think, frankly. For some of it, especially me, I'm a newbie. I have a lot to learn about the community, including where do I go to get very basic information about some of the things that we're considering. So I do worry that, at least for me personally, if we don't get the ball rolling on that stuff, this could take a long time.
So I like the values. I changed that to TRC values statement. The TRC values: racial justice, equity, transparency, and I was trying to catch them as you were giving them. Do we just want to throw some of those values out so that we can at least have that down? other values. Or if you guys just want to throw some in, that's fine too.
Here's maybe a little bit of a controversial suggestion. What about talking about safety and security in this context? Because I do think that people tend to think of groups like this as anti-police and anti-public safety, but I actually think we're extremely pro-public safety and pro-security, because you achieve those things by having strong community and relationships and understanding and truth-telling. So might be a chance for us to kind of turn the traditional narrative about groups like this on its head and kind of identify ourselves as we are pro safety and security. That's why we're doing this work, because you don't get those things if you don't have these conversations.
Yeah, I like that. I like the word safety by itself without the word public in front of it. And I'm probably not a fan of security, only because I want people to still recognize that this group is for safety for all of us. But I totally agree with what you're saying. Sure. Yeah, safety, absolutely. I really liked what Iowa City was saying as far as violence. And I think part of what this group could realize is that violence isn't necessarily always physical violence. But, and Doreen, just from when you were talking about your kids at Cumberland Valley, like racism is violence, right? What it does to our psyches and the ways that it harms us is violent. Post-traumatic stress responses are the results of violence to our psyche, and that's needs to be said and shared and respected and honored in this type of work is my opinion. So I shared the Google Doc with Deputy Mayor Schultz, Mayor Scott, and Councilor Stubbe also. So if you were going to talk poorly about them, you would not want to do it in this Google Doc. They can see it now. I also think wholeness. So I put healing in, but I also think wholeness. Much like violence isn't more than physical violence, I think of intellectual harm and the ways in which racism affects the intellectual abilities and opportunities that our children have from time to time. Of course, the emotional health is significant, and I could even make the case for some spiritual harm that's been experienced as well.
I have to apologize, Emily. I think we were supposed to do our own versions, and I started to make some edits to your version.
No, it's all good. I saw what you're doing. That's fine with me.
Okay.
Welcome changes. Yeah, go for it.
I think best when I write. So, so if you see me typing stuff and backspacing, it's just my process.
I added the words grace and forgiveness. I think reconciliation doesn't happen without it. And I think that I'm probably not the most radical forgiver, but I think it's part of the conversation and the work that takes place. But if somebody wants to not, if we want to take that out, I'm good with that too. Yeah, Rap.
I was thinking about apology.
Mm.
Going back to the roots of TRC idea, that was one of the main reasons for having a TRC, is not just for people to forgive, but also for people to say what they've done, and to it wasn't required, but many people did actually provide apologies for what they had done.
And then as you were saying that, I thought ownership, and I thought accountability.
And wrapped one, like right in that same vein is maybe humility. I think that apology doesn't come without that.
These are some heavy values and words. I just did a values thing for work today, and these are heavy, heavy, heavy words.
I like that we got to this place. You know, it's always a little bit awkward when you start on Zoom and what is the flow going to be like, and you can't read people's body language. And I think we're in an hour and 16 minutes getting to a good place.
I would agree with that.
But do we also maybe throw out the idea of openness as a value?
I think that's there.
Oh, I wrote it and then I just wanted to really drive it home. Sorry.
I'm sold. Any other thoughts on the values?
Empathy, which is really hard for, you know, for a lot of, and again, I think in the terms of high school, but but I know it's tough for a lot of people to empathize.
As you were saying empathy, I thought compassion also. I'm sorry, Emily.
I like that better.
I like both of those, empathy and compassion. I was also wondering about, again, thinking about the skeptics maybe, and people who need or maybe deeply want to apologize but don't know how. Do we value risk-taking? When we think about things like challenging your family members and asking our community members not to sit there the next time they hear their uncle say something offensive. So engage in risk-taking, endurance, tenacity, because it takes that to work on these things.
And Emily, if I can even just snowball off that, because I love what you're saying. There's a vulnerability, I think, piece that I think of myself as in the majority. That's something that I'm going to need to continually embrace.
Yeah, Kendall also added courage and emotional intelligence, major pieces. Yeah. So risk-taking.
Maybe courage is the best way to capture that. That's maybe the word I was looking for. I do like risk-taking too. But as we think about paring down that list.
Oh, were we paring it down? Because
Not yet, not yet. Just thinking. I put risk taking out there, and I'm happy to take Kendall's word instead. I think it's a better word, but we don't have to pare down yet.
Hey, Emily, just question for, or sorry, go ahead, Raf. Is your vision for the value statement to break a sentence out for each of these, or is it just a list as it stands, maybe with some editing?
You know, I am really minimalist about this. I think maybe I've just been worn down over the years by writing vision statements and mission statements. So I like a one-page, couple of sentences mission statement. We value and list the values, and just sort of, you know, we don't need to explain them to everyone, kind of maybe invite people to think about how does that word speak to them when they read courage, what's it calling out in them. And then, you know, kind of if that can fit on one page, I'm a very satisfied person, but that's just one member of the commission's view.
they are such heavy words. And they matter in this conversation. I even think, like, even as we think about paring it down, in this conversation, I think we can make the case for risk-taking and courage. Although they're sort of the same, they're kind of different. And as people are looking at this group and looking at the work that we're going to do, the fact that we value risk-taking, I think can help people to be vulnerable, and can help people to, or inspire folk to want to take risks themselves, because it's something that we hold as important in this work. I mean, so all of these are really just meaty. Like, if there was a sentence for us to be able to use all of those words in, wow. So just for also recognizing that some people are probably watching this meeting and don't have access to the Google Doc, do you guys mind if I just read aloud the list that we have so far? So the TRC values: racial justice, equity, transparency, healing, safety, community and solidarity, wholeness, authenticity, grace, forgiveness, apology, ownership, accountability, humility, empathy, compassion, risk-taking, vulnerability, dialogue, facilitation, and understanding communication, nonviolence, truthfulness / honest, openness, listening, courage, and emotional intelligence. Selah. That's quite a list.
So what if we, you know, just started with like the TRC values and recognizes racial justice. I'm trying to read my own writing because this is why I type. Racial justice is an integral, no. All right, bear with me here. So the TRC values and recognizes, and we would choose some of the ones that we all agree on. So for example, we could say, compassion, risk-taking, ownership and accountability as an integral part of the process of, and again, I'm just kind of spewing out things, as integral, as an integral part of the process of achieving, reconciliation and racial justice. And again, that was very jumbled, but I'm just kind of hoping maybe someone could jump on, in there and clean it up. And
I really like that for a starting point, though.
And you're saying for the value statement?
correct.
Doreen, do you want to put that into the Google Doc sort of
Sure.
under that little paragraph of those words?
Yes.
I added a one-line mission statement, maybe segment, was that the TRC seeks ownership and accountability for systemic racism affected in the borough.
Nice.
I think it's more than that, but sort of this process of the values and pulling, pulling out from there.
Thinking about all the people that we need to bring with us on this, I would add to the sentence that you just wrote, Tawanda, maybe even we seek to understand the systems, because I think systems are big, complicated things, and we're not all yet at a place where we see the systems or get the systems. So we seek to understand the systems. And then something about accountability for wrongs perpetrated within those systems.
Do you like the language of examining systems?
My only hesitation with examining, and that's actually the word that made me think, don't go with these 5 things, instead go with something else, is because when I think about having a conversation with somebody who is really reluctant to be held accountable, examine sounds kind of carceral and separate, and not like we're a part of a community of people who have been harmed and people who have committed harms, and sometimes they're the same people engaged in a process together. So I don't like the word examine, but yeah, I'm only one vote.
Is that, do I understand that to mean that it sort of objectifies the system instead of recognizing how we've all been affected by the system?
It's not so much that it objectifies it. I guess I just think that it creates perhaps some distance between this commission and the rest of the community. Like, we are the examiners looking at the system, when we are all, seekers who are trying to understand the system and dismantle it and correct it. And
I understand.
I have 2 quick logistics related comments. So I was just first wondering, kind of like, is our end goal for this evening to have like the mission statement or value statements written? As one kind of idea. Like, is that what we're hoping to do? or do we think we're going to delay that? Second thing is, I just looked over the doodle poll, and one thing that I saw is that the 7 of us are available on Monday the 7th at both 5 and 6. And I was thinking about, might we, as the hour gets late, start thinking about what's going to be done at that meeting, so we can kind of prepare for it.
Raf, was that the next time that we were all available?
I believe that's the next time that all 7 of us are available. Maybe I'm incorrect about that, but I thought that's what I saw.
You are correct. That was the only time on that particular list that everyone was available. I think it was between 5 and 7 p.m. Which to me, the question became, would that be the social time or would that be the next official meeting time? And the social time would come before then.
I think it'd be great if we could have a social time before that and then use that time to make some progress on our goals.
Yeah.
This is also just a very procedural thing, but it might be worthwhile for you as a commission to appoint someone as a secretary to take notes and minutes for future meetings. I know Joyce is attending this meeting and is taking notes for the commission. It might be worthwhile for you to consider that as well. Just throwing that out there for you.
You're saying we won't have Joyce every time. Is that what you're saying?
I'm not sure if she'll be able to attend every meeting, but I'm assuming you'll all be attending every meeting. So it's better to have somebody who's on the commission taking the minutes for you.
Thank you. So I'm good with putting June 7th, 5 to 7 down for our next public meeting. And then do we want to get on an email thread and try to figure out where we get together in between now and then?
Maybe as suggested, it seems like a doodle poll would be really good for finding a time. Maybe it makes sense to have a discussion now about generally where, and then maybe going from there.
Generally where, you mean as in physical, like location?
Yes, yeah, like if we're gonna meet at a restaurant, like where, like what restaurant, or we're gonna meet at someone's house, or we're gonna meet at the historical society, I think that Tristan mentioned. Like, yeah, just kind of what kind of place we're thinking about as a place, and then scheduling seems to be pretty easy to do via doodle poll.
Yeah, and I mean, I would probably prefer to keep that offline if we could, and conduct that via email. I mean, I live in Dauphin County. I think that's probably the farthest. And I have no problem coming to Carlisle whenever I need to get down there, and I can make my evenings pretty flexible. So. I think if we, Raf, it sounds like you were interested, but it sounded like you had some good thoughts about what that needed to look like. So
that can be done.
Awesome. I'm actually energized by this type of work and could really be here all night looking at this mission statement and values statement. But I do want to respect everyone else's time. I'm not sure how much time you all had set aside for this evening. I think we're off to a good start with the progress that we've made tonight. And I agree with you, Emily. I think it's great that we all woke up this morning as strangers and we've already come together around some really heavy conversations and some really heavy vocabulary. And I think that's to be commended. And I think we kind of see how the selection committee came to the conclusions that they made. So I'm super excited to be working with you all. And I think we have our homework set out for us. We'll keep working on the mission statement and the value statement, and throw a table into the action plan. Raf, you're going to send out that doodle poll, and be thinking if someone's interested in that secretary opportunity, be prepared to volunteer yourself at the June 7th meeting. And then I guess since we've kind of put that June 7th meeting out there as our official next meeting, I guess we're saying that now, right? And then do we want to just look at, is that 2 weeks? Is that what that is?
It's
Yes.
like 10 days or so. What's a little more?
So do we want to just look at every other Monday for the next couple of months? Let's say until that July 24th deadline. So
I think
do we
if we
want to
keep it
go?
at 7 o'clock is good, because I know I have other Monday meetings. So is 7 o'clock kind of a good time for everyone, or?
Well, actually, the time that worked for everyone on the doodle poll was between 5 and 7 o'clock.
Okay.
Now, maybe after that one, I don't know. I'm probably more partial to 6 myself. When we start to get to 30, my brain starts to shut down. So,
Yeah. I just had something pop up between the time that I did that poll and, and now.
I'm just looking at my Mondays, and 6 o'clock works for me every other.
but I guess it doesn't work for Doreen. Does 6 o'clock work for you, Doreen, or not, or it does not for the 7th?
I can move some things around. I can make it work. The only one is trying to see here. Yeah, I'll move it around, and if I can't make it work, I'll just let you know, like, as soon as I can figure it out.
Okay, so then Doreen, you'll let us know then if it doesn't work. So then we're looking at June 7th, June 21st, July 5th, and we can have some conversation about that.
Yeah.
I do.
July 19th. I'm sorry, Andrew. And then that would be it as far as the every other. And then that gets us through the months of June and July as far as scheduling. I'm sorry, Andrew.
No problem. The 21st, I have a conflict pretty much all evening. That's the only one that I can call out right now. The rest of that week, though, I do have evening availability.
Are Tuesdays better for everyone, or are Mondays generally better for everyone?
Mondays tend to be better than Tuesdays for me.
Okay.
Yeah, that for me is pretty much an anomaly, so I can still make most other Mondays work.
Okay.
One suggestion is we could just plan for the ones that we already know are fine, and then I can send another doodle poll for the week of the it's the week of the 21st, is that right?
21st, yeah.
Sir.
21st. So I'll just send one about that too, and just see when and that week we can meet.
I guess it might be the 21st and the 5th, unless I know some may consider the 5th a
holiday. Yeah.
Yeah, well, like for Dickinson, for instance, we're closed for a holiday doesn't necessarily mean I don't have to show up for TRC, but I may not. We'll see how the day goes.
Yeah, I'm fine to send out one for them. Well, so there's two other ideas. One idea is like we can just meet on the 7th and we can plan at that meeting when the next one is if we think there's going to be enough variability week to week.
So because I know we won't have Joyce after tonight, I was trying to take advantage of having her. And her, you know, like scheduling even the Zoom and kind of having that as, you know, for a communication point for us. So if we could, I mean, the 7th is good. The 21st is not good. The 5th might be good, and the 19th is good.
Although I would imagine as long as we come up with the dates that Joyce might be able to do it, you know, during normal business hours, she could still get the emails out to us. We just have to communicate with her.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah. And as far as, I just need the 3 days ahead of time to put the advertisement in the newspaper. So other than that, you don't have to do that long range of planning for dates. I think we're good.
Okay, so then we'll just go with June 7th. Is that what it sounds like? Okay. And then are we prohibited from looking at our calendars if we get together socially between now and June 7th?
You can look at your calendars. Yeah, you can schedule things, you can do all those sort of administrative things outside of the meetings.
We just can't vote.
Right, and I would suggest, maybe Jeff is going to chime in on this or another point, but as far as having Joyce going forward or a secretary, we were sharing some text messages trying to figure out how to help you out, because I think trying to appoint a secretary from among you, it makes it very difficult for that person to take notes, to take minutes, and partake in a discussion. There are 12 other people who wanted to be on this commission, and most, if not all of them, had said they want to have some volunteer opportunity. So there may be an opportunity to have somebody from that group step forward and sit in as a secretary. I think Jeff has a list that he would be able to share.
Correct. Yeah, I'm happy to share that with you all. And there's actually more. So there are 12 other people that applied, but there are more people than that who had reached out just expressing an interest in volunteering, but not serving as members of the commission. So as Sean said, it might be worthwhile to tap into that group of people to take minutes for you. And I did just want to note that moving forward, you're more than welcome to meet in person as well for your formal meetings. They don't all have to be over Zoom. So just, you know, to keep that in mind as we move forward here.
Thanks, Councilor Stubbe. What would that look like as far as a volunteer to take notes? How does that look logistically as far as getting that person in place? How do we call them up and tell them to come on?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to share the contact information of the people that I have who expressed interest in volunteering. So you would be welcome to, you know, reach out to those individuals to see if anybody is specifically interested in essentially, I guess, attending meetings and serving as a volunteer to the commission to take minutes for you. So I would envision them as just similar to what Joyce is doing tonight, attending the meeting, not serving as a member of the commission, but essentially attending to record minutes for you and then distribute them to you following the meetings.
Any discussion around that? Conversation, concerns, suggestions, thoughts?
Sounds like a great idea.
It is a great idea. And I'd also like to just kind of say, I think Tawanda and Emily, I think you guys did a great job tonight. Just kind of, you know, you have such a vast knowledge base. I'm totally comfortable with you guys like leading, and that I'm just speaking for myself. I think you guys are just, really, really doing a great job.
I will second that.
Well, thank you both. And thank you, Emily. Thank us all for the work that we've done here tonight. I wouldn't be able to commit to this long term without a conversation with my family, though, and some prayer. I'd like to do those things first before committing any further beyond tonight and into the future. But I think this is a great group. I think we have one of the things that sticks out for me is some conversation around the time of the selection process about what it means for Carlisle to be looked at as a beacon sort of in this moment, and not just regionally, right? Like not just in the central Pennsylvania region, but how that might even look from other folks around the Commonwealth and even around the Mid-Atlantic region, right? That not everyone is doing this. So this is groundbreaking work, and it's serious and it's a heavy lift, but I think we've got some great people around the table to do it. So I'm really excited about what lies ahead. So we'll look forward to seeing each other formally on June 7th and informally prior to then. If no one else has anything else to offer, then we will go ahead and adjourn and look forward to catching up with you all real soon. Take care and have a good night.